you've made recently.
Oh dear.
Well, we should know pretty soon whether UK Prime Minister will be voted out of office.
Keir Starmer, this.
The next general election making
A no-confidence vote triggered by his own...
For Labour, it is about 7,000.
We saw the Prime Minister's speech.
And I'm speaking out today in relation to Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage. Farage. Nigel 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 Farage.
Everything has just shifted dramatically in British politics, and it's caught everyone completely off guard. Nigel Farage has risen in the National Assembly and stunned the entire nation by tabling a motion of no confidence against Prime Minister Keir Starmer. But that's not the half of it. Farage has exposed a monumental, secret scandal, £300 million of public money squandered, councils bankrupted overnight, and the British people betrayed behind closed doors. The truth is finally out, and Starmer's empire is crumbling fast. How deep does this corruption run? And is this the end of Starmer's grip on power for good? Nigel Farage stood before the National Assembly today with a glint in his eye. The chamber fell silent as he slammed a thick file onto the desk, emblazoned with the words every politician dreads, confidential council fraud investigation. What followed next left every MP utterly agog. According to the evidence Farage unveiled, over £300 million of public funds have been quietly siphoned off from local councils under the watchful eye of Keir Starmer's Labour government. This wasn't an accident, no mere slip-up. This was planned corruption, concealed behind layers of bureaucracy, masquerading as community projects that never materialised and development schemes that were nothing more than pipe dreams. Farage's voice was sharp and cutting. He directly accused Starmer, stating that Labour councils across the country had funneled millions into ghost projects, bogus consultancy firms, and lavish expenses, all while libraries closed, roads crumbled, and hospitals faced staff shortages. And worst of all, no one was ever meant to discover it. But they underestimated Farage. The report he presented contained astonishing details, council officials taking first-class trips abroad under the pretext of urban planning research, millions spent on diversity training sessions that were subsequently cancelled, new building projects that received enormous budgets, yet the building sites remain empty and abandoned to this day. Where did the money go? No one could answer. And Starmer, the man who campaigned as Mr. Integrity, has remained silent. But Farage didn't stop there. With every page turned, the accusations became more explosive. He claimed that these Labour-controlled councils have been secretly using taxpayer money not to improve British towns and cities, but to prepare for a colossal immigration expansion project. Housing and benefit systems are being stretched to breaking point, all while British citizens are left in poverty. Farage declared that this was the great betrayal, the moment when Labour chose migrants over their own struggling populace. The mood in the Assembly darkened. Labour MPs looked downcast. Conservative and Reform Party members leaned forward in their seats. The press gallery erupted with hushed rumours. Could this truly be accurate? £300 million stolen, misused, vanished under Labour's purview. Farage's voice rose again. "We have no confidence in this man," he shouted, pointing directly at Keir Starmer. "He has lied to this nation. He has broken his promises. He has lined his friends' pockets while the British people suffer." The evidence was irrefutable: official council invoices, hidden financial records, whistleblower testimonies, all pointing to one horrifying truth: Labour's councils have been bankrupted overnight, and Starmer either allowed it to happen or, even worse, orchestrated it. In this singular moment, British politics fundamentally shifted. The old order trembled, and Nigel Farage stood at the epicenter of it all, poised to bring down the man who claimed he would save Britain but may have, instead, ruined it. This wasn't just about wasted money, it was about betrayal, about broken promises to every worker, every pensioner, every struggling family in the UK who believed Starmer's words and trusted his government. The man who promised change is now at the heart of one of the gravest corruption scandals in modern British history. And the scandal doesn't end here. Farage hinted that this £300 million fraud is merely the tip of the iceberg. He warned the Assembly that deeper secrets lay hidden, connections between Labour MPs and private contractors, clandestine meetings with foreign investors, council decisions influenced not by public need but by personal greed. As Farage concluded his speech, the chamber was silent. Not a single Labour MP spoke. Not a single denial was uttered. Even Starmer sat frozen, staring into the distance, pale and visibly shaken. For the first time in his career, the man who always had an answer had nothing to say. But the people of Britain are speaking. Outrage is sweeping across the nation. Voters in Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds, angry, betrayed, furious, are demanding justice, demanding answers, demanding that Keir Starmer step down before the damage becomes permanent. And Nigel Farage, with his motion of no confidence now official, has thrown down the gauntlet. Parliament must decide. Will they stand with truth or protect corruption? The coming days will determine not only Starmer's fate but the future of Britain itself. But just when the Assembly thought the scandal couldn't get any darker, Nigel Farage dropped the next bombshell. His voice grew heavier, sharper, slicing through the tension like a blade. This isn't solely about stolen money, he declared. This is about the betrayal of the British nation itself. This £300 million wasn't simply wasted, it was quietly redirected to fund Labour's secret immigration agenda, an agenda they never told the public about, an agenda that is destroying this country from the inside out. The chamber gasped, faces turned white. Some Labour MPs shuffled uncomfortably in their seats. But Farage pressed on, relentless and merciless, holding up more damning files and photographs as the chamber stared in horror. According to his evidence, multiple Labour-controlled councils had been granted colossal sums, millions upon millions, not to repair schools, not to rebuild roads, not to save failing NHS clinics, but to quietly prepare for a clandestine wave of migrant housing, freshly built apartments in quiet towns, new council flats in overstretched cities, all designed to house tens of thousands of undocumented migrants who are now flooding into Britain without public knowledge or consent. The chamber fell into a deadly silence as Farage continued. These weren't plans openly discussed in Parliament. These weren't schemes unveiled to taxpayers. They were hidden in secret council documents labelled as affordable housing projects or community regeneration schemes. But, according to whistleblower reports, some from inside Labour councils themselves, these new buildings aren't for British families on housing waiting lists. They are being filled with foreign arrivals, fresh off the boats from Calais and beyond, without proper background checks or security clearance. And while British citizens wait years for housing, paying extortionate rents and struggling to get by, Labour's cronies and contractors have grown rich building homes for strangers. Farage's words hit the chamber like hammer blows. He accused Starmer of betraying the very people he vowed to protect, the working class, the elderly, the vulnerable. He claimed Labour's plan was crystal clear: inundate Britain's towns and cities with migrants, permanently reshape the voting demographic, and keep Labour in power at any cost. This is the Great Replacement in action. Farage thundered. Funded by British taxpayers, covered up by Labour councils, approved by Keir Starmer himself. The fury in the Assembly was escalating. Farage brandished council invoices showing millions spent on integration services, language programs, and multicultural outreach, services intended not for British citizens, but for the tens of thousands of new arrivals Labour has secretly welcomed. And while this was happening, what did the British people receive? Food banks, job cuts, NHS waiting lists that stretch for months, and now councils declaring bankruptcy across the country. Town after town, city after city, unable to pay staff, shutting libraries, closing care homes, all while Labour spent their budgets welcoming a new population the public never approved. And the consequences are evident everywhere. Look at Birmingham, Britain's second largest city, officially bankrupt and collapsing. Council tax spiralling, services cut to the bone. And yet, quietly, Labour's preferred developers are still constructing new estates, new apartments for newcomers who have never worked a day in Britain. Meanwhile, elderly pensioners in Birmingham are being evicted from care homes because the council claims it has no money. This is not incompetence, this is betrayal, cold, deliberate betrayal on a scale the British public has never witnessed before. And Nigel Farage made it abundantly clear: Starmer knew. Starmer approved. Starmer signed off on the budgets. As Farage spoke, the horror on the faces of Conservative MPs deepened. Even some Labour backbenchers looked aghast, shaking their heads, whispering amongst themselves. If this were true, then Keir Starmer was not simply guilty of mismanaging public funds, he was guilty of undermining Britain's national security, its social fabric, and its economic survival. But Farage wasn't finished. He pulled out one final document marked "strictly confidential" and read it aloud for the entire Assembly to hear. It was a secret email exchange between senior Labour Council leaders and private developers discussing new housing for anticipated high-volume migrant arrivals in Q4 of this financial year. There it was, in black and white, proof that the councils knew, proof that they planned for this, proof that Starmer's government was preparing for a flood of new arrivals behind the British people's backs. All funded with taxpayers' stolen £300 million. The Assembly erupted in uproar, shouts, gasps, furious cries from the opposition benches. Some Labour MPs buried their faces in their hands, others stormed out in anger or shame. As the dust settled in the National Assembly and the shockwaves from Nigel Farage's devastating revelations rippled through the chamber, the true scale of the disaster unfolding across Britain began to emerge. This was not just another political scandal. This was not merely about £300 million wasted or quietly shifted into secret funds. No, this was the beginning of a national collapse, a slow, painful crumbling of local councils, public trust, and the very backbone of British life. Across the country, council after council is now teetering on the edge of financial ruin, while the public, furious and betrayed, is rising up in anger not seen for decades. The first city to fall was Birmingham, the once proud jewel of the Midlands, officially declared bankrupt just months ago. The official excuse was historical equal pay liabilities. But after Farage's astonishing evidence, many now suspect the truth is far darker. Hidden within the council's spending reports were mysterious development grants and community enhancement funds totaling tens of millions, precisely the sort of payments Farage had warned about. And now the consequences are unavoidable. Council tax has soared. Social care services are collapsing. Libraries and youth centres shuttered. Rubbish uncollected. Potholes unrepaired. And the people of Birmingham are left abandoned, furious, and demanding answers. But Birmingham is only the beginning. In Manchester, the City Council has frozen all non-essential spending, unable to meet basic financial obligations. In Nottingham, councillors have warned that bankruptcy is inevitable unless emergency bailouts are granted. Leeds, Sheffield, Bristol, town after town, city after city, all now face a terrifying financial black hole. Even small market towns like Darlington and Shrewsbury are reporting service cuts and budget crises. And behind each of these quiet disasters, the same pattern emerges: councils that spent lavishly on mysterious housing regeneration projects that, as Farage revealed, were actually part of Labour's clandestine migrant accommodation schemes. The British public, once patient and long-suffering, is no longer willing to accept excuses. In Birmingham and Manchester, protests have erupted outside council offices. Pensioners clutching placards reading, "Where is our money?" Angry fathers and mothers chanting, "British homes for British families." In Leeds, furious residents stormed a Labour councillor's surgery, demanding she explain why food banks are overflowing while new flats are quietly being built for unknown migrants. And in London itself, outside Westminster, thousands have gathered, ordinary people, trades workers, veterans, nurses, all crying the same thing: resign, Starmer. General election now. Meanwhile, inside Parliament, chaos reigns. Backbench Labour MPs are in open revolt, terrified for their seats. Secret texts and emails are flying between MPs late into the night as some plot to oust Starmer before it's too late. Senior Conservative figures, emboldened by Farage's masterstroke, have begun preparing for a snap election campaign. Even Liberal Democrat and SNP members, usually bitter enemies of Farage, are privately admitting that the Prime Minister's position is no longer tenable. The Speaker of the House has been forced to call emergency sessions to discuss the potential fallout of the no-confidence motion, which now looks likely to pass with cross-party support. And yet, through it all, Starmer remains trapped in silence. No statement, no press conference, no defense. His closest advisors are reportedly in crisis talks trying to prepare a damage control strategy, but leaks from inside Labour HQ suggest panic. One anonymous source confessed, "It's over. Farage has the proof. The councils are going bankrupt. The public is turning against us. We can't survive this. The fear is contagious." Labour Party donors are now withdrawing their funds. Poll numbers are collapsing by the hour. In the latest Snap survey, nearly 70% of voters said they no longer trust Starmer to run the country. Among traditional Labour heartlands in the North and Midlands, support has crashed to historic lows. But the financial destruction caused by this £300 million scandal goes beyond politics. Local businesses are suffering as councils cut contracts. NHS clinics are closing outreach services because council health partnerships have evaporated. Police forces have warned that community safety funding has dried up, meaning fewer patrols on Britain's troubled streets. And while the poor and elderly suffer in silence, the Labour-linked developers who built these migrant homes have vanished with their profits, leaving half-finished estates, empty promises, and angry residents behind. In working-class towns like Rotherham and Stoke, resentment boils. "We trusted Labour for 50 years, one elderly man told reporters, waving a crumpled Labour membership card. "Never again. They've sold us out for migrants and money." In coastal Dover, where the migrant crisis is felt every day, local fishermen gathered to demand Starmer's resignation, chanting, "Farage was right. Farage was right." Across social media, viral videos of Farage's speech are spreading like wildfire, fueling a national mood of anger and betrayal. The public mood is turning dangerous, and Westminster can feel the ground shifting beneath its feet. And now the ultimate question looms over Parliament like a dark cloud: will Starmer be forced to resign before the no-confidence vote? Will Labour MPs try to save themselves by toppling their own leader? Or will Starmer cling to power as the tide of public fury sweeps him away? Inside Downing Street, the lights burn late into the night as desperate advisers weigh impossible choices. But outside, in the streets, the people have already decided. They want justice. They want answers. They want Keir Starmer gone. The nation stands on the brink of political catastrophe. The financial collapse of councils is only the first wave. If Starmer falls, Britain could face a snap general election, new leadership, new chaos, or perhaps, just perhaps, a new beginning. All of it triggered by the £300 million corruption scandal Farage dragged into the light. The sun rose over Westminster on a day that would be etched into the darkest chapters of British political history. The entire nation held its breath. Millions of eyes were locked onto Parliament as Nigel Farage, standing tall and defiant, prepared to deliver the final blow that could end Keir Starmer's troubled reign forever. The motion of no confidence, officially tabled and fiercely debated, now sat like a loaded weapon on the desk of every MP. And across Britain, from working-class towns to the great cities, the people waited for justice, for truth, for the reckoning they had been denied for far too long. The debate was brutal. Farage, fierce and unrelenting, rose once again and delivered a speech so damning, so impossible to ignore, that the entire House of Commons fell silent. With his finger stabbing the air, he laid out the charges in a voice as clear and sharp as glass: £300 million stolen from the people of this country, councils bankrupt, promises broken, British families betrayed, while foreign interests grow rich. His words echoed off the ancient walls of Parliament as gasps and whispers filled the chamber. Even Labour's own MPs sat stone-faced, some hanging their heads in shame. A few quietly slipped from the chamber, unable to bear the weight of their party's disgrace. Across the benches, Tory MPs, once hesitant, now rose with new fire, their confidence fueled by the fury of the British public. Some shouted across the chamber, "Resign, Starmer! Resign!" The Speaker of the House struggled to maintain order as chaos swelled. The Liberal Democrats, the SNP, and even members of Starmer's own party murmured amongst themselves. The Prime Minister's fate hung by a thread. And then came the moment of truth, the vote itself. MPs filed slowly, grim-faced, into the lobbies. The division bells rang across Westminster. For what felt like an eternity, the nation waited. On social media, the hashtags trended worldwide, #NoConfidence, #Starmer resign, #Farage exposes Labour. In pubs, homes, factories, and offices, working men and women watched every second, knowing the result would shape the future of Britain. When the count was finally announced, the chamber erupted. The motion had passed. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister who had promised hope and honesty, who swore to protect the working man and restore Britain's greatness, was finished. His government had lost the confidence of Parliament. A general election was now unavoidable. And outside in the streets, a mighty cheer rose from the angry, betrayed people of the United Kingdom. They had waited long for this day, but this was no time for celebration. Britain now faced uncertainty deeper than any seen in modern times. With councils in financial ruin, public services in tatters, and migrant housing scandals exposed to the world, the road to recovery would be long and painful. Yet, for the first time in years, many felt a spark of hope. Nigel Farage, triumphant and clear-eyed, addressed the nation that evening. "This is just the beginning," he said. "We are going to rebuild this country honestly, fearlessly, and for the British people first." His words struck a deep nerve across the country. Inside Labour HQ, chaos reigned. Senior officials resigned. Donors fled. Backbenchers plotted. Starmer, pale and defeated, was said to have left Downing Street in silence, refusing to speak to the press. His rise to power, once hailed as a new dawn, had ended in scandal, disgrace, and betrayal, a £300 million scandal that no amount of lies could cover. And the people of Britain, angry, awakened, unafraid, were finally ready to take back control of their destiny. But now the question falls to you, the viewers, the voters, the heart of this great nation. Will Nigel Farage rise to lead the country into a new era? Can Britain recover from the shame of this £300 million scandal? Or will the damage done by Starmer's secret deals haunt the nation for generations to come? Tell us what you think in the comments below. Should there be a snap election? Should Farage become Prime Minister? Or is another leader waiting in the shadows to take the throne? The battle for Britain's soul is far from over. Thank you.